Hello and welcome once again to my channel. If you are new here, I think that you should subscribe because I have more videos on sociology of technology coming up. And today we are looking at chapter 4 of our course, and the topic is gendered technology. Gendered technology. Of course, anywhere gender appears, it's interesting. So it tells us that today we are going to have a rather interesting discussion. And I'm sure one may be asking, what could we have to talk about as far as gender is concerned, or what has gender got to do with technology? I believe that by the end of this class, we will at least learn a few things on that. So the objectives of the studies is, first of all, to examine the meaning of the terms gender and sexualities and the range of conceptualizations that are available in the academic literature. And we want to look at historical and contemporary theoretical and methodological approaches to the study and critique of gendered technologies. Thirdly, we would look at investigating the relation between household technologies and physical and mental labor, and we would also want to call into question perspectives of technological determinism. Also, we want to examine the role of women in the IT industry and to obtain an overview of current interventions that are aimed at increasing gender equality in this field. We'll take a closer look at how the gendered body becomes reintegrated into the digital world in the form of images, discourse, media depictions, and user-generated content. Yes, so we know that in technology design, the use and implementation, gender is often invisible. And this is not the case because it is purposefully erased, but the case is that gender is not viewed as an important consideration. And so it hasn't won that much attention from researchers and other disciplines until recently, when attention began to be drawn to this kind of relationship where we look at gender and technology. And so you'd ask, what understanding sex and gender has been a vibrant area of investigation in social science. This interest in unpacking sex and gender has, however, fairly recent and only started in the late 20th century. Yes, like I said, it hasn't attracted that much attention until just in the 20th century. And so scholars tended to disregard gender as an important subject of study, in particular in the study of technology. Okay, because I believe that mostly it was sociologists who began to study issues about gender. And so gender in relation to technology has been very, very recent. And so the World Health Organization defines sex as the biological and physiological features that define men and women. Yes, so when you are born, that which we look at physically to say that, oh, it's a girl, or oh, it's a boy, those are what we mean by sex. When we say, what is your sex? We're talking about what defines you physically or biologically. But then also we need to be aware that these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Okay, we know that we do have hermaphrodites, people who have both genitals and all of that. And so as we define this, we also have such in mind. Now, gender refers to socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. Okay, so the key thing here is that it is what the society, what each society attributes to a man or woman as their given attributes, okay, or their roles, the roles we assign to them depending on the society. And so it can be small or big, micro or macro. And so if you look at it from a national society perspective, when we say in Ghana, what are the roles that are prescribed to men and women? You will find such. But also you can narrow it further and further to my smallest village as to what roles are assigned to them. Do men or are men allowed to cook in Ghana? Are men allowed to care for babies in Ghana? Are men allowed to do laundry for the family? What are the roles when we see a woman or a man stirring benku, sorry, a dish in Ghana? What is the notion in that particular context? And so it might not be same in other societies. So these are society defined. Of course, we do have universal roles that are assigned, but in all intents and purposes, it has to do with the particular society at a given time. So technologies are often treated as neutral objects, designed with neither a specific gender or person in mind. So that is the problem when it comes to technology and gender. It starts from the fact that technologies, when they are made, you all agree that there's not so much emphasis on which gender is going to use it. It is made, it's a machine for whatever use, and no one is thinking so much about the gender that is going to use it. And remember, gender is not just women. When we say gender, we mean men and women alike. Now, technologies are perceived as impacting women and men equally, without taking into account that men's and women's bodies are different. Yes, so we make all these, we make a car. I don't see a car that the manufacturer designs or the designer makes with the labeling it as a man's own, looking at the body of a woman and making it. That is a very problematic issue. That's how come we need to discuss this. So the debates around gender issues are often initially only after the design of a tool is completed, instead of it encompassing all aspects of development, use, and implication. So instead of we thinking through this from the very point when the design is conceived, we finished and we after we have designed the tool, then we begin to think of who can use it. But it should be the other way around. Probably it is these days that some people might have such in mind, and possibly it's because of some of these studies that have come up that are bringing those issues up. And I would wish that you think of some of these. What technologies are made with the gender or a particular gender in mind? So there are various perspectives as far as what the issues of gender and technology is concerned. So we'd like to look at some three theories as far as gender and technology is concerned. And the first one is liberation, the women's liberation view. And these are of the view that women's liberation view, they advocate that technology can liberate women by one, supporting fertility choices. You may want to look at this and find out whether you agree with this or not. Is this something that actually liberates women? Fertility choices. We know that these days we have a woman does not have to give birth to all her babies in her womb. Until recently, I heard something that, was really shocking, that a woman around my neighborhood has actually given birth to about 18 children. And she says that they said her life is threatened if she doesn't give birth to all these children. I don't know how true this is. Some people think that she just won't have, those kids. Yes, but then, so the point is that these days, a woman can choose how many children she wants to have, when she wants to have them, because there are technologies that have made this possible. And what are some of these technologies? The birth control pills, IUD, even the condoms. These are all technological innovations that have come to make or to liberate the woman. This is according to the women's liberation view. They also say that it eases the burden of household work. Okay, and why is this an issue? It is because household work in time immemorial have always been the job of women. Okay, it's traditionally, and you can go to the US, to the UK, Asia, any part of the continent, and that has always been the case. It might present itself in different forms, but the notion has always been that women are those that do the household chores. And so, with the emergence of technologies that makes it possible for women to do their work more quickly, means that it is a source of liberation. And this is what the women's liberation view advocate or argue. They also say that it creates alternative flexibility or a flexible work environment, particularly suited for women. Yes, they're saying that it makes it possible for for you to create a flexible work environment that women can be part of, because these technologies are available and the woman can then even be part of a working class. And then we have those who call themselves the women's oppression view. And for them, they think that technology has come to enslave women. Say that women will be enslaved through technological advances. They also say that women are going to have fewer choices in general, and that women will become more dependent on existing technologies. I don't know how this group are thinking, but possibly, maybe if I can try to think for them, they believe like the dystopians. They think more like the dystopians, thinking that look, this whole thing is coming to rather give us, to put us in some bottle where we cannot free ourselves from. We are going to be enslaved to these technologies. And well, when you think of it deeply, I, to some extent, we have women these days who are enslaved to some of the ways in which we now operate in our kitchens, and possibly it appears we now forget of the traditional ways of doing things. I think I have mentioned this in another video about, how I grew up knowing how to use the stone um, to grind my tomatoes, only to now have a blender, and I sort of have forgotten that that is even an option. So likely this may be the ideas that they're saying, but whatever it is, this is not in my view. This is the view of this theorist. Now, there's also the women's inclusive view, and for them, they have just one viewpoint, and they think that women need to be a greater, or to be greater integrated into the technology debate, not only as users but also as active participants and creators. So these are the ones that think that look, yes, it might liberate us, or it might oppress us or limit us, whatever it is. Can women be part of making these technologies? Because they think that women sort of are not so much seen when it comes to designing these technologies. And perhaps if we are part of designing it, we can control whether it liberates or it actually enslaves us. Okay, so they think that we need to be active participants and creators instead of just being users of it. So looking at the issue of household technology, the kinds of household technologies continue to grow, and including items like vacuum cleaners, dishwashers, irons. These have come to make life easy. Irons used to be the ones you put the charcoal in, and make the fire and fan it. It gets hot, and by the time it's hot, it is messed up with charcoal all around it, and you have to clean that up. And whilst you are ironing, you're going to have ashes coming out and spoiling your dress. I'm just remembering how things used to be. But even that was the technology. But that we have advanced into electric irons now, and that makes life much more easy, only expensive. Yes, so these are things that we have come to be very much attached to. And this shows a high reliance on household technologies, and a show of how deeply these are, especially in the lives of women. So, of course, these have also made life easy for men, but it appears it is more for women because we are known to own the house and the kitchen and all of that. And so until the 1970s, unpaid household labor was primarily the domain of women, with very few paying attention to this imbalance. So until the 1970s, it was just women, um, and no one seemed to feel that there was an imbalance, or even that it was a topic for discussion. It was as though that is normal for everything household to be the job of a woman. And so people like Anne Oakley's in her book influential in her book The Sociology of Housework, shows the fundamental shift in how industrial sociology views housework, by arguing that it is also work even though unpaid. So these are authors that began to add some value to the work that women were doing. And so this links directly to Marx's concept of alienation, the deep separation between labor and identity. Wattsman, 2013, he has described housework in terms of three characteristics. And what are these? He says that it is privatized. That means that it is not visible, and as a result, it's not directly compensated or acknowledged. And also that no final product is to be celebrated at the end. That is for the household. Just wake up, you work, work, work. Nothing much to show. And that it is decentralized, no hierarchical structure, no established formal roles or tasks or deadlines. Mommy just wakes up and she knows that she's supposed to be in charge of cleaning the house, washing dishes and cooking. There is no hierarchy. There's my boss and then chain of command, and that whole office setting that makes us know that we're going to work and to come back is taken away when it comes to household or work or housework. And then the third one is what labor intensive, physically labor intensive, no pre-established beginning or end. Exactly. You keep working until you just think, I'm tired, let me rest, or let me go and do this and come back to it. And it's just a chain and it goes on and on. So just a little more light to what we just said, household work is not visible, and as a result does not get directly compensated or acknowledged in the same way as other forms of work. There is no final products. Yes. And so how do technologies play a role in household work? How do they play a role in household work? The introduction of household technologies has opened a new era for homemakers, signifying a revolution of how housework was to be done. So, the whole introduction of household technologies actually was sort of a revolution to bring it brought us a change, a huge change in how work was to be done in the house. Household technology was endorsed because it was assumed that it would facilitate the work of homemakers. Definitely, we thought that if you had to wash on it and then clean and do other things. So many things lined up, like I have on my weekends, basically cleaning the house, cooking, and all sort of things. Now you can imagine the kind of or the volume of work you have to deal with if you do not have any household technology. If you have to wash with your hands, spending hours and then finish and clean up your house and scrub and cook. But if you have a machine that washes and actually makes it easy to even dry, it's at the end of the day you spend less time doing all of this and less energy actually. And so a labor saving technology, it would free up time for leisure. Okay, so now I can even be watching and watching a movie at the same time because I have a machine. I don't have to have my hands in water, and or I can be able to read when I put clothes inside the machine, and that is something to useful, of course. It would diminish the physical demands on women, of course. It was one of the things I'm sure made women very tired, but these days it reduces that burden. The home once that was once a private place now has become industrialized and subsumed under the principles of scientific management. Yes, so a house that was something that you come and you do all your private stuff. Now it's more like an industry, and in fact, you have to have certain skills to be able to operate in the house these days. So if you bring a house help, for instance, that has never seen some of these gadgets, you can begin to appreciate this point. Okay, it's no longer a very simple thing. It's a whole industry on its own. And so Vance later demonstrates that in spite of the increased reliance on household technologies, there was no conclusive evidence of it resulting in saving of labor and time. So that's someone being more very critical or trying to counter the previous argument. He says that, well, he doesn't see that there is that much evidence to show that these household technologies actually save labor and time. I don't know what the person was actually looking at, but this is some counter argument. So another argument was that that is from the technological determinism perspective, and they are saying that technology freed up time and reduced the amount of work. Nonetheless, technology or technological change is never straightforward. Okay, they think that it's not that straightforward, that this is what it does and that's it. It's much more complicated than that. According to Cohen, the industrialization of the home happened in a more complex way, hand in hand with other social changes. So it shouldn't be looked at as though there was this point in time when all of that happened before anything else came up. These were things that came up with other social changes hand in hand. Okay, so as these things came along, there were other changes taking place, obviously, and possibly it was some of these changes that determined the development of these household technologies. So, to further question and understand the relation of women and men to household technology, we need to explore notions of use and competency with regards to household technologies, which is what we call the user actor gender gap. User actor gender gap. You know, there is a gap when it comes to the use of technologies by women and men in the household. It's something that we need to deal with. So the concept of user actor gender gap suggests that women are represented as users, but not as engaged actors in tool development. That's the entire concept here. Women are more users than actors, and that's what we call the user actor gender gap. So even though many of the traditional notions about gender roles are changing, there is evidence that women, even when employed outside the home, continue housework. So she will go out there, but even both of them can go, they can be both lecturers. They go, and when they come home, it is the woman who is known to be in charge. She has to go get food for the husband and the kids. She has to have the kids bathed. If there is any cleaning, she has to do that. If there's any ironing, everything household is a notion that has always been there. So, in your opinion, what are the latest household technologies making their way into the home? Do you think cell phones can be considered household technologies? What about tablets? I wish I could hear your views on that. So, since the introduction of the World Wide Web, what we know as WWW, there has been an ongoing debate about how women use and make sense of the internet and other mobile technologies. So early research on computers consistently demonstrate that men were more likely to own and use a computer than women. This is something that was a surprising finding, because we thought that women were more users of computers in workplace, and yet there was a huge gap when it came to who owned these machines or these technologies. Looking at access to the internet alone is not a sufficient measure of digital engagement. So if you wanted to know, who engages the technology more or digital engagement, you wanted to measure that, and all you measured was access to internet, then you might not have an accurate answer. Scholars have proposed that a person's competency when online is also important. So just the fact that someone has access to the digital world or the internet and all of that, does not necessarily mean that they have a fruitful engagement. It is important that we look at how competent these people who are having access are online. And studies now integrate measures of digital skills that are aimed at determining a user's ability to understand and use the internet. And so there was this statistics that was conducted by the Pew Research Center, Washington, D.C., and they were looking at what women do or what activities women are able to lead with their or on the whilst they are on the internet, or what do they use the internet for. And so the first part is the online men, percentage of online women, and then date of PIP, and so, or date of the survey. And you would realize that there are very few allocated to women than men. And so women, for instance, were known to use or to send mails. They use the internet for sending mails, to get maps or directions. They are good at using it for health and medical information, and also to get support for a medical issue or personal problem, and also to get religious or spiritual information. So this was what the research proved or showed. Meanwhile, when it came to men, the activities that men led on the internet had to do with things like research products or service, check weather. They use it to get news. They uh, use it as a do-it-yourself website. You know, they use it to check sports information. They get financial information. They do job related search. They download a computer program. They pay bills with it. They listen to music at websites. They listen to radio broadcasts. They rate a product or service person. They download music files. They do online auction, download video lines, remix content, visit adult websites, trade stocks, bonds, funds, and use webcams. They take class for personal enrichment, and then also they pay for digital content. So these are, the things that they saw that men did more. Of course, it's not as if women were not doing anything, just that in percentage wise, men were leading in these activities. So it tells you, what they mean by looking at the competency of the people who have access to the internet. So even though women might have access to internet, what they are competent or what they are able to do with that is very important. So there's no lack of paid female representation in the labor force, but certain industries still demonstrate gender segregation. Yes, so even though these days, yes, we know that the number of women who are able to work, in the formal sectors of labor, in terms of labor, are growing, there is still that inequality or segregation when it comes to even the work that women do. So the concept of gender segregation describes how women get placed in positions perceived as more feminine, and at the same time, those jobs that women occupy are redefined as women's work. This would start where when you are in SS, you realize that the it was not much. I mean, when we were to elect for the school prefect, mostly it was the man who was a school prefect, and then they will have a girls prefect. Meanwhile, the girls prefect is only for the girl. The school prefect, sorry, who as a man was in charge of the entire school with the girls prefect under him. At least I was a prefect, and so I know that. And so it's sort of been the case throughout where, even these days it's taking us so far to think of a woman being vice president. And that is what has happened in the US, and the whole world is so excited. And it's something that was even taught about in our part in Ghana, where we have the NDC electing or putting a woman in that position. So these are the things. And, typical is you go to an office and when they're looking for a secretary, no one's mind goes to a man. It's a woman they're thinking of that will fill that position. Hardly will you have a man fill the position of secretary or a front desk person. We justify it with all kinds of things that the woman is more, I mean, homely and would be more subtle and have a voice and a personality that is appealing, and even with things like advertising, billboards, you see women on adverts that have nothing to do with a woman. They're selling a car, and it's a woman who is there. Sometimes the woman is even more revealing than the car that you are selling, a house, and it's a woman that is by it. It's just amazing. So that's what we're talking about. Even though we are allowed to work, we're still struggling to close the divide when it comes to what men can do and what women can do. There are still notions that this is what a man can do, even at the workplace. But it looks like these days that is actually reduced. We pray that it reduces further. So in the true 1920s and 80s, the occupation of secretary consisted of primarily women who helped with office jobs. Cybertarians are defined as women commonly working in developing countries who are paid minimum wage for routine data entry jobs. So cybertarians were became a what? A cutout job for women. Cutout job for women. It meant that if you're a Sagittarius, you were nothing, that you couldn't be a woman, a man, sorry. And so these are some of the things we're talking about. So why do we see a trend toward fewer women choosing IT careers when this sector is growing and providing increasingly well-paid employment? What's happening? That's the question. What's going on? Even in this class, I believe that the women are way few. Usually they're about just 1%, if not 0.1. So it's something that we are trying to unravel. And this is difficult. Evidence consistently shows that women are using a wide range of technologies in their daily life. They are still users instead of, IT gurus, even though, of course, there are some women in that field. The majority of sociological analysis are focused on women as users instead of looking at women as active agents of change. So maybe we need to change the way in which we do these analysis. We possibly are not zooming into these developments where women are also being active participants. So we may have to change our lens, our focus to that. So if women are heavy users, why are they not designers as well? Because if we are using these gadgets more, I mean, if you hear it, is the women who we say because of iPhone and all that, they leave their boyfriends and all that. So we are so passionate about these technologies, the cars and all of that. And so why are we not part of designing these technologies? Huge question that we need to answer. We need to do research on. So there have been several attempts to make technology and coding in particular more inclusive for women. I mean, these are attempts that are being made, and so you would find that these days there are a lot of international and local initiatives. I have a friend I met in a conference I attended who is into mentoring women into coding. She's into IT, and she's just great. And so these are some of the things that are being done to get women to love coding and do these things. And so I really congratulate all the women that are in this class and engineering classes and IT doing their best to also contribute to be actors and not just users of technology. Yeah, so when it comes to the design and development of technology, the body is often erased. That's the first point that we did make. And this is about the fact that there is a neglect of considerations related to the body in the design and use of technology, including a person's body shape, his specific gender characteristics, and all of that. These are not considered when it comes to designing a technology. Now, this brings us to discussions of technology relevance to three things. One, technology interacts with the body. So we need to draw our minds to these again. So we become our tools, and our tools become us, according to McLuhan. He thinks that this is something that we need to have in mind, and that number two, not all bodies are the same. Okay, so we're looking at the bicycle case, which is on page 77 of chapter 4. Sorry, not page 77, case in chapter 4, actually, and I'll indicate that later. And so there is a case study about how the bicycle had to be redesigned later in consideration of women. Okay. It used not to be that woman friendly. You would realize that bicycles were made in such a way that, I mean, it was for men. But with time, it made room for with women in mind. I used to have a bicycle when I was little, and it was a type that they made a size of it, and even the front, where some had no bars, and so the woman could usually use them. When a man used that bicycle, you were looked at in some ways like you're riding a woman's bicycle, and the man's bicycle was more muscular and bigger and all of that. And so that was a good innovation, but then it happened after the whole bicycle thing had been designed. And so that was to help, that came to help a lot, because then women could also use bicycles. And that definitely would mean that there will be a lot of progress in society. When you have a woman with a means of transport so easy, it makes life very, very easy. Also, technology does not determine the body. Okay, technology does not determine the body. The body is there before technology. So, I mean, those are things we should think of that first. Reproductive technologies, for instance, and its changes to the body, both positive and unilateral. So, in conclusion, all we've been saying is that even though gender and sexualities are deeply private and personal spheres, they closely intersect with the social world around us. Reductionist, reductionism often occurs, that is, household technologies promoted as labor and time saving. that technologies do not have a direct impact on household work, but their effect is often moderated by other factors. There is a lack of women in the IT sector, particularly in leadership positions, and there are a variety of initiatives underway that aim to change this dynamic. Much research tends to erase the body from discussions of the virtual. There has been a recent reemergence of the body in this research and in research on virtual communities. Thank you very much. I'll see you in my next video.